Hello, everybody. It's Jason Grant from Integral, and today again I have with me Priszcilla from Be-novative. And today we're talking about engaging your team for innovation with design thinking. And without further ado, I'm passing over to Priszcilla to start her presentation. So thank you, Priszcilla, for joining us again, and please take it over.
Thank you so much, Jason. So, as you probably have met me, I'm Priszcilla Várnagy. I'm the CEO and founder of Be-novative. And today I'm going to talk about how you can engage your employees for innovation using design thinking methods. So, can we jump in?
Absolutely. I'm ready. I think everyone else is ready who's watching right now.
Truly innovative companies don't just design for customer experience. They also design their own journey towards creating maximum impact. Design thinking really resonated well with me, and I kind of felt this aha moment when I stepped into the gates of Singularity University at the NASA Ames Research Park in Silicon Valley. I won the Global Impact competition in Central Eastern and Southeastern Europe, and I got the opportunity to be part of the 10-week program of Singularity University. And what I was very much looking forward to was learning about how to accelerate innovation and create a design-infused company. We visited the biggest startups, small tech garages, and even had workshops at IDEO, meeting the greatest minds behind design thinking. And as a psychologist, I love the fact that they said the journey starts with empathy. The mindset of putting people in the center, understanding their feelings, thoughts, actions, is, I think, what eventually will make us design meaningful and impactful solutions and make a difference in people's lives. And that's what we want, don't we? The only thing I was really missing is that using design thinking always meant looking outside to our customers, to their environment, emphasizing going out of the building, exploring the market. We do design thinking outside. Go design think over there. Come back when you're ready. But why don't we design think right here within our organization as well? Let's look inside our company and let's discover how we can design for impact on any level and in any department of the organization, creating an innovation and design-infused company. And even if you take design thinking inside, the journey starts with empathy. How well you get to know your employees at the bottom line will set you up for success. Let me tell you an example. We started working with Audi together with Aon Hewitt, who is one of the biggest organizational development and HR consultant companies. The goal of Audi was to totally rebrand their employer branding and involve talents from universities throughout the country to multiply the applications. And instead of going the traditional way, sending out surveys to the employees and asking them to rate from 1 to 5, what are the advantages of Audi, what things to emphasize in such a campaign. Instead of that, they actually created a challenge for employees to share ideas on what do you love about your job working at Audi. And people responded really well. They shared a lot of ideas, and the best contributors were also invited to make interviews. But now the surprising part was that blue-collar workers were also invited to this process, kind of almost for the first time. And these blue-collar workers actually outperformed the white-collar workers in their activity rate, motivation, and contributions. This is something nobody expected. It was easier to create a campaign and the video with the insights they provided about why Audi is a great place to work. And in fact, in that year, PwC's Employer Branding Award was won by Audi. And besides that, they also won something even more important. Employees felt throughout the process that they matter. They were finally asked and involved, and the management was curious about their suggestions on why Audi is a good place. And the company-wide conclusion was, we really do matter. So besides joining an ideation, just like in this story of Audi, what are the other methods using design thinking to achieve the same type of empathy with your colleagues? For example, customer journeys and using ethnography could be good for the same exact reason. As you probably know it, a customer journey is actually the canvas that shows you how the people feel, think, and what they do at every step of meeting and interacting with the solution that you created or within the company. And ethnography is the process how you observe and gain insights from that. Obviously, you can also invite them to an ideation session, just like in the previous example. Last year, we concluded several UX interviews to understand if we go into that path of the ideations, what motivates people to take part. We really wanted to make sure that we understand, so we didn't take the usual 5 to 8 interviews to be enough. We actually did extended interviews with 35 people. And all of them said either or both of the following 2 things. I take part when the person is important for me, who invited me, or when the topic matters and I feel I can contribute to it significantly. And it's never hard to find a topic that really matters. Let me give you another example. When the business development lead of Cisco got an invitation from a CXO in the beginning of the year to present a 3-year strategy of tapping into an SME market, instead of spending days and nights sketching out the perfect strategy, she was brave enough to involve more than 300 people to reflect on their diverse viewpoints and involve these viewpoints into the strategy. So she created a virtual challenge where all of these people were able to share their contributions crossing geographical borders in an anonymous way, using built-in inspirations in small groups, and following the ideation of something like 10 to 15 minutes per person, they went forward to evaluating the ideas also anonymously without the bias of knowing who exactly shared the idea. They got to know the answers of what are the most impactful, feasible ideas and suggestions in a very short time. She had 1 week left before the presentation, so she decided that she will invite the 100 participants who were the most involved to elaborate on the more than 1,200 early stage ideas that was shared. And actually, they came up with 19 idea concepts just in 48 hours, using other design thinking methods like the client persona to find out who in the SMB market they actually would like to talk to, using an empathy map, finding out what this persona would feel, think, and do before and after meeting the solution. They use value proposition canvas. We went forward to rapid prototyping And most importantly, they synthesized the outcome of everyone's suggestions as a project roadmap. Now they had it was time to present their idea concepts to a very high-level jury. And what was really interesting, that all of these 19 idea concepts were found to be very, very high of value. 12 out of the 19 was selected to move forward. And within 1 year, actually 4 was already on the way to implementation. Instead of having just one single idea concept and one single strategy, it was a perfect mix that was the biggest success within Cisco. So what is the learning from this story? That the best solutions reflect on diverse viewpoints. And you shouldn't expect to find the winning idea when you create an ideation session involving others. Because design thinking is about how we can find the best solution to a problem the fastest way, so that we involve the entire team utilizing its full potential, which reflects on their diverse viewpoints, and empower them to validate the solution with the target group as quick as possible. So the outcome will be maybe 1 to 3, which is fine, but don't expect it to come from the winning idea owner. With regular design sprints, you can basically edit the DNA of your company to discover these meaningful topics, have empathy, and find these best solutions to improve on an ongoing basis and do it regularly. And transparency is actually very important in this process to become a design-infused organization. It takes a long time, and many have yet to make this transition. But some organizations are approaching it, and even traditional ones. So another favorite story of mine is from a recent experience that one of our manufacturing company clients, and by the way, we have clients on 6 continents that I'm really proud of, started introducing a new program for creating an ongoing innovation culture. And usually these companies have 1 to maybe 5 innovation competitions and challenges to go out to their employees. But instead, we got to notice that in this company, in only 4 months, there were more than 32 challenges up and running. And these challenges came from any level of the organization. These challenge topics you should imagine like really, really broad as a spectrum, from how to stop the vandalism in the toilets to how to reduce waste in product development, to even strategically important ones as how to disrupt the industry and what will happen in like 5 to 8 years from now. Instead of just having these challenges up and running, all the people were really engaged to share contributions. Some of them said that they are looking forward to the ideation as like a highlight of their day, and also got really motivated to move forward with the implementation of these ideas. And I know it because we were working with management consultant companies as well, together with the same client. And the company said it's really fascinating that the majority of the ideas shared are already on track to implementation. And why I find it really fascinating that the ideation and the implementation started on so many levels within this company is because during these UX interviews that I already mentioned, we also realized that being a challenge owner is like being an innovation champion. Inviting employees in a challenge is like making a promise in a sense. You promise that something will happen with the ideas that you are collecting, and this something will make their work environment better, or it will significantly improve the process, product, or services of the company. And people invest their faith in the challenge owner, and through their contributions, they believe that they will create a positive impact together. I believe this is the ultimate motivation of every one of us. Just because we still have a profile on social media and have a fear of having a poor Wi-Fi signal doesn't mean this era is about connectivity. And neither is it just about the sharing economy, although we all like to contribute and keep resources efficient. This is not the ultimate goal of the internet, nor the 21st century. They are good steps towards something bigger. I think we are rather transitioning towards an era of co-creation and being design-infused. We will not only consume, but also create and design content. We connect and contribute and share because eventually we want to feel we designed and created something meaningful with a positive impact on us, on others, on the world. We want to contribute to something that will leave a mark on this world so that we can shape it in the way we like it. This is what the 21st century and this new era is preparing us for. And it is our responsibility to turn the focus inside and try to involve others in solving challenges that will make our everyday lives and processes better. We can create impact in a healthy body. And it is only us who can understand why we do the things we do, which ones we enjoy, and how to multiply those together to improve together. And in a design-infused company, everyone is empowered to redesign processes, opportunities, and create impact. And this journey of creating impact starts with you. It starts with us.
All right, awesome. Actually, I'm really impressed by the global sounding nature of that presentation, and that it's talking about purpose and how design thinking is helping us design the evolution of ourselves and the society and the world as a whole. So tell us a little bit more about how sort of the notion of engagement of the team with design thinking is sort of practically reflected in a typical sort of situation. Give us some more kind of people always wanting to know more about like concrete examples, some practical things.
So you mean how in practice design thinking works for engaging the people?
Yeah, I mean, what comes to your mind? I'm engaging you now with a question, and it's quite sort of ad hoc, right? These things are not so scripted at this part of the presentation. So my first engagement question to you is, what comes to mind in your particular experience away from the presentation around how to use design thinking to engage? Because let's say a couple of days ago, I was in a session, in a design thinking session, in a government department, and I think the immediate stance from the people is that they kind of just sit down and they're like, so what is a cool sort of icebreaker example?
I usually think that if the topic, as I said, is meaningful and people get the invite in a way that is quite personal, they feel important, then they will be engaged to take part. What is more important is on the long run. So as I said, creating a challenge is like making a promise. And if they see and we communicate that the outcome is on the way, and there were actually a few ideas and suggestions that were moving forward to implementation, then they will still be engaged. Other things I would be able to say from the perspective of the CEO. So for example, in my search story at the manufacturing company, why they were really successful is also because the CEO took it quite seriously, that this is a program that they will introduce, and he himself published at least like 3 to 5 of the initial challenges and told everyone to do so. And because these challenges were ranging from like different topics, people got the sense that it's fine to have a challenge topic that is like a very small kind of question, from like where should we go for a team building event, to something with a social impact about how can we make our green campaign to be more efficient, or even about something like strategy. And the CEO obviously offered incentives as well for the best contributors, but also to those who are regularly taking part. So incentives and prices are always helpful, both for quality and also just to encourage people to participate. So these are the things that came to my mind very first.
Yeah, so what we did, and it was like, it's an interesting thing in terms of designing a design thinking workshop or activity that requires quite a lot of designing before we go into the sessions, unless some sort of off-the-shelf framework is being used, which typically I find doesn't really work that well, unless it's like part of the sort of more customized framework for that particular workshop. So so what ended up happening is there was quite a bit of oscillation of energetic forces, so to speak, between this thing of whether to leave it open for freestyle and improvisation versus pre-structure everything before the workshop started. And I'm personally always in favor of leaving quite a lot of things to improvisation, because I think that kind of forces thinking in some sense, right? You have to sort of be on your feet, be innovative. But sometimes people that I work with, they're like, I'm much more, I want to have myself organized and so on. So we ended up, and actually the person I was working with who said, I want to be really organized, ended up coming up ad hoc at the beginning of the workshop with the concept of giving people Kinder eggs, and whatever figure or toy they find in the Kinder egg, they have to kind of pitch it, along with introducing themselves, they have to pitch it as a sort of superhero who has certain particular superpowers that can solve the problem kind of just magically. And actually it worked really well, and we ended up freestyling and improvising that into the whole design thinking workshop, and saying when they had to do a playthrough through the system, we actually ended up saying to them, if you can't play through something, you can use your superhero to magically sort of get you through that problem.
Wow, in that sense, it's funny that when you said like leaving it open, a really bad experience came to my mind that was almost telling me to say that I'm opposing this notion of leaving it open. But when I understood what you really mean by that, I have to say that I think also as a psychologist and as someone who knows these design thinking methods, that it's always better to be spontaneous, to take the vibe of the group and to go with the flow and see what is needed, how to move forward with them. But leaving it open obviously means that we are still going to facilitate the session. Just crazy things may come up, like being superheroes and like a child, as you just said, which is, I think, perfect. So most of the times, these ideas that just pop up are really the best. What I don't believe is in some of the hackathons, okay, I have to say they are not design thinking related. They are just like idea jams, so to say, for 24 hours or 48 hours. I participated once in a mega startup hackathon, and it was one of my first experiences in the Bay Area. And as you can see, English is not my native language. I had quite some challenges to get used to the environment and how things will happen. And in the beginning, it was fine because the facilitator said, okay, now get into a line. And if you have an idea, then you have like half a minute to pitch it. And if there are any other people who resonated well with your idea, they will come behind you. And this is how you will form teams. I said, okay, perfect. Definitely, I have an idea. So I pitched my idea, and it was great that some people came to me, we formed a team. But then the trouble started because he said, okay, now off you go. And in like 36 hours, we will meet. Some mentors will go around and ask how you are doing. But in 36 hours, you have to be ready with your presentation, with your rapid prototype. And you have 5 minutes on stage in front of hundreds of people. And we used the first, I think, full day just debating on what the idea should be, who should lead it, how it should look like. And in the evening, when the mentors came around and asked how you are doing and what the product will be about, we didn't even know if we agree on what our product or even project will be about. And because I was the one pitching the idea, they said, I'm going to be the one presenting as well the next day. And I remember it was really terrific. Like 45 minutes before I had to go on stage, we still weren't ready with the presentation. We were not sure how to do the things. And I went to the organizers and I told them, I'm not able to do this presentation, just please cross me out. And they said, no, it's going to be fine. Just believe us that it's like this with really everyone. And after you did the first like 50 of these presentations, you will feel confident and it's going to be okay. And that was the only thing why I said, okay, first 50, if I say, I'm going to run away right now, then I still have 50 ahead of me. So let's just get away with it and do it. But I still remember it as like, never let people be alone for 36 hours just debating on what exactly their idea should be. So in that sense, when I'm the facilitator, I like to prepare with at least like 2 or 3 possible scenarios, but I never get attached to them. So I think it's good to have like a backup plan, and if I'm participating in these sessions and I feel that the facilitator has the sense of the audience and can help everyone, okay, for like we go in sprints, and in the next hour, your task is just one single thing. For example, do an empathy map with your persona, who you elaborated on in the previous step. I think it's just the perfect combination.
Yeah, so I think there is an element here around the structured and unstructured aspects again, because I think in what you mentioned about, and you mentioned that you're a psychologist, and I tend to sometimes jokingly call myself shed psychologist. Like, you know, I do psychology in the shed. I've never formally studied it really, but at university, but I've spent countless hours and days and weeks really learning about it. And what I've found to be the case is that, and there is a great book that I always recommend to people. It's called The Ultimate Secrets of Total Self-Confidence. It's like one of those long titles, but the book really lives up to its title because it kind of unwraps the core psychology of everybody and various kind of traumas that people carry with themselves to everything that they do. And we've found at Integral, through our program called Fresh Mind, which is really applied design thinking to the idea of redesigning one's mind completely, is that by letting go of various psychosocial traumas, one can actually step up on the stage without ever needing to prepare and deliver a very decent presentation. In fact, that's what I do now all the time, because I realize that the best way for me to be innovative is to talk from what Kenny Werner, who is an amazing piano teacher from Berkeley, he talks about. His book's called Effortless Mastery, and he talks about playing from the space, and that applies to both music, but also really innovation. So the idea of applying design thinking to, effectively, it's about applying it to completely unknown. And so I love to just get immersed into something that I completely have no idea what it is and who the people are and how it's going to work out, because I trust that something of value is going to come out on the other end of that process. So what do you say as a proper psychologist, not a shed psychologist, to this sort of mini thesis that I just laid out? You're on mute. Please unmute yourself.
I think it's really cool, and it sounded actually amazing. I would be very excited to try one of these sessions of yours, as you just said, because I think because of your experience in any circumstance, you're a creative person, and you can find out at the specific moment how to react to it so that it's going to be useful and beneficial for everyone. I think the only problem for others is if it's totally unstructured and they are not leading the session. So in like a laissez-faire style, like you go and you do whatever you would like and then come back when you are ready, you have the solution and you came up with something. I think that's the only part which I experience to be problematic, and that sometimes even psychologists do, but it has nothing to do with being spontaneous. And in fact, the more we experiment and the more we can tell people to try out new things and trust themselves, trust the others, and be really spontaneous and let everything behind. Don't worry about sounding ridiculous. Don't worry about anything. This is a safe space now, a safe place where you can be a different character that you are normally in your everyday life, and anything can happen. And just connect any crazy ideas of yours with either another one or with someone's crazy ideas, and it's just for the moment. Then I really believe, just like you, that magic can happen.
So is it fair to then say that design thinking is and process of design thinking is one where we blend the best of structured world with the best of unstructured world, giving people enough structure not to get lost, but sort of enough freedom to experiment, innovate, engage, co-create, etc. And maybe also I'm trying to dig deeper now into why that might be a psychologically framework thing with most people, because like most people, seemingly from what I'm observing, most people don't like too much structure, but they also don't like too much chaos, right? So people like to be somewhere in the middle. Why is this so? And why is it important for design thinkers to be cognizant of this at all times, perhaps?
I think it's simply because of how the creative mind works. So if it's too unstructured, that it's more like chaos, and you don't have anything to connect with anything because everything is just moving around. And
okay. Let me interject there, because Kenny Werner talks about two types of freedom, and he talks about freedom inside a form and freedom outside of form. So you can have freedom with loads and loads and loads of rules. It's just that you have to follow rules. So for example, one type of music that is very rules driven is something like Baroque, J.S. Bach Baroque music. And they're very strict rules. Whereas jazz music or some sort of atonal harmonization is very free. There's very little rules theoretically. So it's possible to be creative both outside of rules, outside of structure, and inside of structure. What do you say to that?
I perfectly agree, and it really depends on people, how much they are comfortable with the open space and how much they are comfortable with the structure. I think it in some sense depends on our personality type, that is innate, and in some sense it is also connected to how we were raised and what we experience in our environment. I don't know to which exact research it connects to, but it was found that those children who grow up in a very noisy kind of Italian type of family with a lot of things going on, everyone is shouting, the TV is like on really high volume, it's free to let your mind go and do crazy things. They cannot really tolerate if everything is in structure and if everything is like quiet and you have to just do whatever, like be in the lines. However, if you were brought up in a very strict family with maybe parents in the military who are like, no, it's absolutely impossible to go outside the lines, and the children were always set to respect the others, never be crazy about anything, then they get frustrated when things go outside the lines, and they find it as like chaos, and they get nervous, and they don't know how to react. So in the first situation, it is rather advised to say that these are the borders, but it's fine to be a little bit more creative, just like with jazz music. And with the second type of people, they can still be really creative, but respect that they would like to stay in the borders.
Okay, just to remind people that are watching, you can ask us questions in the comment section. So if you post the question that you have, I hope you have got like burning question. Probably they'll watch and go, I want to ask a question. Ask it. Now is a good time. But I will chuck a challenge to you ad hoc here. So you said depending on what kind of personality the people in the workshop or participating in design thinking process are. But most of the time we don't have this available to us. So, you know, people join, we at best know their name and maybe see a little picture, maybe we could see a little bit from their LinkedIn profile or something like that. If there is time to sort of do that sort of ethnographic study, so to speak. So where people don't sort of walk around with their psychosocial profiles on their faces, although I've been sort of watching some presentations about cold reading of people's faces and what it actually tells about them, which is an interesting thing. Like, let's say, you know, there's 10 people that walk into your design thinking workshop. 3 of them love extreme structure. 3 of them love extreme freedom. 3 of them are somewhere in the middle, and 1 is like unknown. How do you determine, again, you're now a qualified psychologist, so I get full scope here to ask you for a qualified opinion in this, because this is like a burning question of mine. How do you actually work this out as to what sort of exercise might be best for that whole group now?
Actually, it's really good that you asked, because I think in some way, unconsciously, I always prepare myself and facilitators for this situation by saying that these are the instructions, for example, for drawing an empathy map, but allowing people who are more like the more outside the borders creative type and more preferring the unstructured way, that if you have any other idea or a burning desire to do something differently, you are free to do so. So these are just the guidelines. If you think you are more efficient with them, it's fine. If you want to experiment, it's also okay. And usually what we find is that those people who prefer these structures, they will exactly do how we share the exercise, and other people will like dominate the teams and say that we actually interpreted this situation a little bit differently, which is also okay.
Yeah, so really in many respects, there's no mistakes during a design thinking workshop or design thinking activities, because, and it's also a weird one insofar that the authors of design thinking have called it design thinking, and then many people go like, it's not, we should stop doing the thinking, we should start doing. And I say to the people, it's like, yeah, design thinking is about doing. You know, you've got to be active and practical and proactive and doing things, because that prods the thinking mind. And really these 2 things are in many respects one same thing. So, but let's be the devil's advocate on my end a little bit and say, okay, so you can tell people, right now I'm asking people to ask a question, and I'm explicitly asking them, and they've joined, they're watching a stream about engagement, but they're choosing not to engage and not to ask. So to me, this very psychology, let's just use this particular webinar here. The webinar is about engagement. I'm explicitly asking people to ask a question, and they're not asking a question because there's something deeper down in the mental structures that's, you know, preventing them from saying, can I ask a meaningful question? What is the kind of the punishment that the universe will exercise upon me for maybe asking a stupid question? You know, I'm dramatizing here on purpose a little bit because maybe this was going to get people to ask a question.
Actually, I think it's totally fine. So if they came to a design thinking workshop with a reason to be creative, and to come up with a really disruptive idea and think outside the box, then it's different. But if we can handle that, they prefer staying in the lines and be on the safe side. Usually I say it's fine, and you just live with your own standards, and we can still chat and enjoy the conversation and think about whatever excites us, and it's not going to be a really big thing. But if the first situation is the case, so let's say it's rather a workshop and they came for letting go of their fears, then I always believe in working in small groups, because if they feel like they have to take a really big jump and shout out to everyone, for example, in the audience, whoever is watching on the entire internet, that it's going to be this crazy question coming from me. If we create this safe space, physically, personally, saying that you can work together with 2, 3, or 4 other people in an intimate space, and no other people will hear if you say something crazy, or if it's about doing something, no other people except your team members will see you do that, then usually they try. And once they tried and people say, oh, that was really cool and you should show it to others, then when we get together to a big group and ask, okay, now who would like to present something from their teams? If they already got enough encouragement and saying that, no, it's not going to be crazy, don't be afraid, then much more people will be brave enough to try and share.
So also as a psychologist, I'm just really like exploiting your knowledge now and insights. I consider myself to be what I would call extreme extrovert, okay? Because what I've noticed is that, you know, we could do this exercise as a sort of a formal exercise, but we could run down the street in London completely naked, and probably out of 100 people that we pass, maybe 1 or 2 would turn around and look at us, and other 98% would just continue walking as they were. So the kind of seeming reality of the world out there is that really kind of nobody cares for most part. And maybe this is, I'm sort of creating an ad hoc hypothesis here, but maybe this is because actually majority of the world, majority of the people, humans, are actually extreme introverts, unlike myself. And so as such, they're not actually interested in engaging, cooperating, co-creating, communicating with others, etc. Could this be the case with the world as we stand?
I have to disagree that the majority of the people are extreme introverts. I think it's quite a number of people who are pretty balanced. Even I think I might be an extremist from the psychologists, because I really hate the different types, and I think it's like exaggeration, and we lose something if we give people a title that you are this type or that other type. So my kind of belief, and it's not in psychology, that most of the people can be either introverts or extroverts, depending on the support they get from the environment, depending on their experiences in the past years. So not just like in that specific moment or day. And the example that you just said, I think it's really perfect for showing how we are capable of letting go of our fear and really trying out new things and feeling comfortable with whatever we have. Of course, you have to be an extrovert to try that. But I think other people would be able to be trained to maybe not running naked in the streets, but also for doing things they never did before and showing it to the world. Let me just give you one example. For example, the educational system in the United States is preparing the students for giving presentations regularly. And if you ask someone who is American how they feel when they have to present something in front of like 20 people, they say they feel nothing. It's like a task that they need to do. But if you ask someone in Eastern Europe, for example, how do you feel if we say right now you have to present something in front of 20 people? They feel really nervous. They say maybe can I just refuse it, or how will other people think? So I think it's also kind of a training that we can do to be self-confident and okay with the situation that we show something for other people.
So how, and I think, so there's a very, very important aspect of human psychology at play here, because it's a sort of a two-way street. As a design thinking facilitator, we can overwhelm the group. Like I can dominate a group of 100 people if I want to, because I can ramp up my extrovertness to such an extent. And that's not a good thing in a design thinking workshop when you're facilitating, because for most part you want to kind of more or less shut up and let other people kind of create ideas. Although that's not really strictly true, because if you've got something relevant to say, you should probably pitch in and say it and put it on post-it notes or whatever. So the question is really then, what are kind of some specific tactics to support and facilitate allowing this kind of balancing up of the group between introverts and extroverts, whether we believe people are like that? Because let's say just some people are more introverted and some people are more extroverted, whether they're like that naturally or environmentally induced. What you, again, as a psychologist here, what tactics and approaches would you deploy to enable that balancing of introversion and extroversion, or bringing introverts out of themselves and maybe letting extroverts listen in more?
There are a number of tactics, but what always works is actually a combination of three things that I truly believe in. One is that creating a risk-free situation, something like almost gamifying the situation, that you can right now try anything and there will be no consequences. So for example, if it's in a design thinking environment, using either post-its or the virtual challenge in a way that it's anonymous and only you will be shown your identity once other people say it's like a really impactful, feasible, or like a potentially really good solution that you are saying. It gives the freedom for people to let their mind go. The other thing is working in small teams. So again, if you think about, I'm just sharing it with these people, and it's not much of a big thing. It's almost like an intimate situation. I know who they are. I feel comfortable. Then both introverts and extroverts are more likely to share. And the third thing is giving inspiration. So if we take their focus from the specifics and giving them inspiration, just like a picture that they get surprised about, or an example, or a story about something that is relatively not connected, which takes them out of the context of how they were thinking before, then both the introverts and the extroverts start thinking about that inspirational moment. And if it's also a safe space, they feel fine, then they are more likely to relate to it and have something creative to come to their mind and also share it.
So one thing that, as we start sort of wrapping up, I did a master's degree thesis back in 2003, which was about managing virtual teams in completely virtual environments. And this was still almost the days of dial-up internet still back then. And so what I found in my research, which I was doing by building a piece of software online for virtual team management, is that there was a sort of 80-20 distribution of those who participated. 20% participated very actively, and 80% didn't participate, even though they were in the team. And I spent like a whole year rebuilding the quote unquote algorithms or scripts, really, that was sort of trying to engage people who weren't participating, and it was very, very tricky. It required a lot of both thinking as well as then doing to implement those ideas that I was coming up with. And it doesn't matter what implemented, it seemed to kind of still, for some reason, persevere with the 80-20 distribution. It's almost as though those kind of extroverted people managed to sort of hack the new algorithm and find a way to still be most active, no matter what sort of gamification tactics I brought in. So I know this is like a very sort of weird perhaps question, but like, how can we in a software environment, and maybe you can bring an example from your real world scenario of what you've been implementing, how does this sort of redistribution of engagement in a virtual world work?
Actually, I have to say this is what Be-novative is truly about, because in Be-novative, we design the whole process in a way that if people are joining, for example, an ideation session, then they will get a sense about what the topic is, but they will be aligned into small parallel groups of 4 thinking together. So firstly, even if it's like a virtual environment, it's not like we let hundreds of people to share the same screen, and it's not like one person types an idea and then 20 or 30 others are commenting on it, or 50 others are to see it and vote it up and down. It's more like a canvas, just like if we were in a room with a wall, and instead of real post-its, it's like virtual post-its. And the team of 4 share these ideas anonymously, and they only have a limited time of 10 to 15 minutes to come up with as many possible suggestions as they can. And because also the evaluation is on an axis of 2 dimensions of impact and feasibility, which is default, but you can change it to anything else like urgency and strategic fit. People will evaluate the ideas without knowing who shared them. And everyone is really excited to see at the end, which is as short as like 25 to 30 minutes, who were the top 3 people who shared the most potentially interesting solutions according to everyone. So if I'm in the top 3, I definitely feel proud, and it's not a big deal to show that I am on the leaderboard. But below the top 3, I will see my own ranking, but nobody else will see mine. so that it's type of like a game. If I feel that the topic is something that I can contribute to, or someone asks me that it's really important for me to share your ideas because I believe that we can move forward with your ideas, or for some reason it's important for me that you take part. Our experience is because of this safe environment and because people share ideas in small teams, actually it's the contrary. 80% of the people will take part. And actually, according to the statistics in Be-novative, one person will share 4 to 5 ideas per person in one session of 15 minutes. So I think that this is the reason that in a virtual environment, if we also allow people to feel safe and to just play and don't overwhelm them with the situation, just like they were on stage and the whole world is watching them, then they are more likely to contribute. And there is one more aspect, as we are talking about psychology, which is about the feeling of responsibility. And the reason why it's really good to work in small teams is because if it's a small team of 2 to 4 people, then the responsibility is shared between also these 2 to 4 people. While if it's like much more people, I see that there are 20 others also in the team, then my contribution is 1 to 20. So it's kind of less important. And I can say, well, even if I don't say anything, there are 19 other people who can just share something. Why would I? It's not a big deal. I'm just gonna wait for others. Maybe what I would be sharing, it's in the head of others. Maybe they already even written that down. So it doesn't matter. And if it's even hundreds or thousands of people that I know were invited, my contribution is like really, really little. So I'm free to say, they won't even notice if I don't even take part.
There's so many of these little kind of subtle and nuanced aspects to explore. I think as we get more advanced in design thinking, we can start really wondering and observing all sorts of different parameters of people's both behavior and engagement. And I think this whole area of like getting people engaged in creativity is only really at the cusp of its sort of true development. I believe strongly that as we go forward in the future, I already feel it, for example, even this year compared to last year here in London. Like last year, talking about design thinking workshops was almost like, oh, that sounds like very sort of quite advanced thing. We're not ready for that. And this year, it just feels like, yeah, it's just a normal thing to be doing. And somehow things have flipped even in 1 year. And so I see this, as we go forward year on year, things will become much more natural to the point where design thinking is the only way to start, develop, and end any process. And I can't wait for that to happen.
I really believe that this is the future, and we can apply design thinking for solving any type of problem and for improving anything in our environment, and it will empower us to really do anything better and to do it together.
Priszcilla, thank you so much for once again, showing up, delivering this wonderful, insightful knowledge and practical case studies, examples. I invite everyone else to share this with, 2-3 colleagues. Share this with 2-3 colleagues, right? These are some of the really kind of quite advanced insights really that we discussed. And, get design thinking more mainstream, really, because I feel that 2018 is really first year where it's becoming much more mainstream. So let's make sure that it is like that. And so share this, subscribe to this channel. There's another episode happening soon as well. and other talks as well that are related that are going on this channel. Like it, comment, even afterwards we'll pick up all the comments and answer them and so on. So thanks very much for everyone for watching, share it, and thank you once again, Priszcilla, for delivering this wonderful, very, very advanced expert insights. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Jason, for inviting me. See you soon. Bye-bye.